Alright guys, it's 24 hours later, no leaks. Let's drain it, flip it over, start on the crankshaft. Dry. Awesome. Alright, crankshaft specs. Guy here, we're all cleaned up, ready to go. So, we're going to check some journal diameters, some other stuff. Did find a few possible sources of some of that noise it was making. Anyway. Alright. Shaft is supported on 3 slip-in type bearings provided with shims for a very limited range of adjustment. Bearings are removable from below without removing the crankshaft. To remove the crankshaft, remove the engine. Duh. Alright, so this is something that personally I've never worked on an engine with this before, but what they mean is between your caps and the block they have these shims. These are the ones that were in there. Pulled them out and cleaned them up to see if we can reuse them because they aren't exactly cheap for what they are. Alright, so the idea here is that they'll put shims between here and here, multiple shims. That way, as your bearing wore, you could take shims out and tighten the bearing up. Now the obvious problem with this is you're tightening on the top and the bottom while your lateral surfaces essentially remain the same, and you're just knocking your bearing out of roundness, which in a pinch could be helpful, but for long-term service, not going to work too well. So for new bearings and shells, crankshaft installation, use the standard shim pack of 4 shims on each side, which will automatically provide the correct running clearance. Okay, and I think they were 2 thou shims. I believe now they sell packs of 2 shims per side, but they're 4 thou shims, so basically you're looking at 8 to 9 thousandths shim distance. Another thing to note, there's an oil wick in the rear for the pilot bearing lubrication. We'll have to take that out and put a new one in. Don't have to, but it's a good idea. And here's a diagram explaining what I was saying before about the shims. So when we have the shims installed, you want to have about 1.5 thou, what they call crush, which is basically interference of the 2 bearing halves. So I'll show you how I'm going to measure that. Like I said, I've never done these shims before, but I'm going to attack it the same way I would attack, say, a mold at work, because a lot of plastic injection molding is figuring out crushes and interference and stuff like that. So hopefully my way works out. But first off, let's get some diameters and look at some specs and make sure our crankshaft's still good to put back in. If we take a look at our sizes here, we're looking at just under 2.25 for the mains, and as you can see here, we're about 2.217 and 2.216, in and around that range, so pretty far under there. Rods, we're looking for 1.937, and in reality we were at about 1.906, so about 11 thou under. So obviously I'm not going to use this. We've got a power seal main bearing set, standard, and this cool little guy here, this is original Allis Chalmers new old stock, standard. A few other things to note on the crank. If we look at the mid journal as well as the rear journal and the rear flange, we had some heat damage in there. Also, the oil wick for the pilot bearing was installed incorrectly. Front main, which is the thrust bearing, looks good though. Alright, so I definitely jumped the gun on that one a bit when I ordered standard size bearings with the rest of my kit. But I was really trying to order all my parts at one time, and it was a calculated risk, and I failed. So, fortunately, the boys up at A&W Tractor got me covered. We got some new bearings on the way, and hopefully it shouldn't take too long to get here. So we'll get those undersized bearings in and keep the project rolling. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. More coming next time. See you then.